we started testing or screening the water in all of 62 of our elementary middle schools for lead and copper. We this week found out that 19 of the 62 schools came back with results that showed elevated levels of lead or copper.
So over the years, there's a lot of things that should have been done that were not done. Our buildings have been neglected. Slowly but surely, resources that we need, we have not been receiving them. So, and then the money is drying up. And so it's kind of like the perfect storm. And so we ended up where we're at now.
This is the People's Water Board Coalition Water Wednesday webcast for April 6th, 2022.
Welcome, 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 beloved community. We are back again with yet another installment of the People's Water Board Coalition's Water Wednesdays webcast. I'm here today, as usual, with my co-host, Valerie Jean Blakely. Can't forget our behind-the-scenes tech people, Lou Novak and Rosalind Walker. And today, we have a very special guest. He is going to talk to us about issues that a lot of home owners and renters in the city of Detroit probably have never really thought of. He is an activist. He fights for the rights of all Detroit citizens, and he's a hometown Detroit boy himself. Today we have Mr. Mike Shane. Thank you so much for being here, Mike.
Thank you, Nicole. Thanks, Val. Thanks, Lou.
This is as soon as we started hearing, or as soon as we started talking about your story, we knew that we need to have you on so that folks could really kind of understand what's happening in their own homes, probably, and the things that other, Detroiters are experiencing and what they have to do to kind of rectify the situation. So we're really grateful that you came on today, and it's a short show, so we're going to get started. Why did you end up starting to test your water? What was your reasoning and thought? Why did you start testing it?
Well, my home has been tested for 3 years by DWSD. We're part of that matrix of testing where they sample water in your home and then publish a report annually that just says how good and wonderful and safe the water in Detroit is. Well, I got my results back from a test in either in July or August of last year. And for the first time, let me just step back a minute. What DWSD does is they tell you not to use your water for at least 6 hours, 7 hours. That's called the stagnation period. And then they test the first liter that you draw in the morning and the 5th liter, and you throw away the second, third, and 4th liter. So for the first 2 years that I was in the program, both samples came back with 0 parts per billion lead, which is what I want, which is safe water. This year, the 5th liter came back at 2.5, I think, parts per billion, which set off alarm bells for me because I'm saying, what changed? What is going on here? I talked to my son, and he jogged my memory. He had Great Lakes come out the year before to test water because we were getting a lot of sand and silt in the water because they were doing a lot of work on the water system on the west side.
The Great Lakes Water Authority tested it?
Yeah, they refused to actually, initially, he had to harass them to test the water. And what they did was they went to an outside faucet in the house. They didn't want to come in the house to do the test. And they took a sample. And then they wouldn't give them the results. He had to fight to get the results. And in his email, he had asked that, chemicals be tested for, all the different pollutants that you would normally test for. They finally came back with a result. All they did was test for turbidity, which means the amount of silt in the water. They never tested for lead, or at least didn't give him the test results. So he then had DWSD come out to test the water. His came out, his first liter was high, not 0. It was non-zero. And his second liter was, I think, 7.5 parts per billion. So we're going, what the F is going on here?
Yeah.
And he has a baby girl over there, which I'm very concerned about. And that's what got me to start testing. So the first thing we did was to test I started coming up with my own test sequences. I used my own lab that I have a relationship with in Livonia called Paragon Laboratories. They're certified, they do good work. I only had them test for lead because I had to keep the cost down. This was coming out of our own pocket. So we started testing the 1st liter, the 5th liter, the 7th liter, 9th, 11th, and 13th. The idea was, I was telling my son, we'll be able to tell how long the lead line is because one of those samples will drop to 0.
Mm-hmm.
The results came back. None of it dropped to 0. That set off more alarm bells because at some point I should be getting clean water from the main.
Yeah.
From the main that's running down the street. And keep in mind that he lives right across the street from me, literally across the street. The water pipe, the main water pipe is on my side of the street. So I knew he would have more lead exposure than me by the width of the street. And, I did estimates and I chose 13 liters because I did the calculation and figured that I'd be into the city main. But it was disturbing. So I reread the the paper I get from DWSD. They talk about flushing lines. So ultimately, I did some more testing, and then eventually we tested after a period of stagnation. We tested the water at time t equals 0 minutes. Then we let it flow full bore for 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 6, 8, and 10 minutes. And we were shocked that there was lead at 8 and 10 minutes still in the water. And one of the times that we did this, go ahead.
I mean, I know that all the lead pipes, our water infrastructure is lead pipes that need to be taken out and replaced. Obviously, that's probably where that is coming from, right? I mean, the fact that we have all lead pipes, pipe infrastructure. But it's so disturbing because your testing actually went over 15 parts per billion, didn't it? Yeah. And that's what the EPA says is, that's what they say is the safe water, which we all know that there's no safe amount of lead in your water. There's just not, but that's what the EPA puts out, right?
Right. Well, we did 41 total tests on his house, and I did some on my house. My house came out better than his. But out of the 41 tests, roughly 1 out of 5 exceeds the EPA test limit. One of the samples, after 2 minutes of flowing, now my son hadn't been in the house for 6 days, and that's why I tested then, just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
The 2-minute sample came in at 66 parts per billion. This is after running the water hard for 2 minutes.
Oh my God.
Wow. So that was
it's over 4 times the limit the EPA allows.
Yeah,
right, which is already not a scientifically set limit. That limit is set based on fiscal considerations, because to get us down to 10 parts or 5 parts would require us to defund the Pentagon and direct the money toward the people in the cities that have lead pipes.
Oh, like
we
they
have lead
should
pipes
do.
all over the place.
They should do anyway, is defund the military.
Yeah, well, that's where the money is. We've neglected this for decades, and but anyway, when it hits 66 parts per billion, my son and I are going, we have those WTF moments. We're going, what is going on here? And that each time we did tests, the average amount of lead kept creeping up. So something was going on in the water system. Now in the winter, you're going to get lower test lead results than you will in the summer. All this is being done while the water is cold, from October through March of this year. We did some more. I repeated the 2, 4, 6, 8 minute, 10-minute flows several times. And the one in December was the worst. And it started dropping after that, which suggests that there are things going on in the water system that we don't understand, that I don't understand. Um,
Mhm.
Now there are water pipes being replaced 2 or 3 blocks on either side of my street. And I suspect
Yeah.
that something there is going on that is affecting everybody's water quality. This is a big problem because any perturbation or any disturbance of your lead line will cause lead to be released into your house. For example,
Yes.
I had a water meter replaced within the last month because my water usage started increasing and almost doubled over a 4-month period while I was doing this testing. So something is happening in the system, and my water bill shot up. So they came, they pulled the water meter out, and I know this is a digression, but it's related. They were supposed to warn me to flush the system in my house. They never did that. In fact, they had to come out to my house 3 times because they didn't replace the water meter properly. And the third time, which was just on Monday, they came in and they couldn't figure out why they couldn't read the water meter. It's because they didn't register the water meter in their internal system at headquarters. They were reading the water meter that's over in the repair facility. They're trying to read that and they can't read it, of course. Well, they were supposed to give me a crib sheet that Eileen Bontanzo created for them when they were a consultant. They never did that. But at least on Monday, they gave me 2 water pitchers and 5 water filters, but didn't tell me that I should be using them. Let me just say this too. The workers coming out to the house are very polite, very considerate. My beef is not with them. They're not being told what to do. The instructions at the highest level of DWSD are not being sent down to the field workers who come to your house.
Right.
And I'm sure they're getting a lot of abuse from people. And I can tell actually because I don't abuse them. I think it pleases them that I'm not going to abuse them. I try to show some empathy about what they're doing. But anyway,
So you think that the water meter not being installed was just from lack of them training the workers how to do it?
Well, the water meter did get installed on the second visit, but they didn't record it in their system.
Okay.
That's not the fault of the worker who comes and puts the new meter in.
No.
Yeah, that's.
He should have given me a piece of paper and some filters on the second visit that said, this is what you need to do because any disturbance of the lead line will, for a period of time, could release lead into your house. I was not given that warning at all. I've since learned that from Elin, that this is what has to happen. The third time the guy came over, and mind you, they told me on the third visit that if I wasn't there, they were going to fine me $40 for their mistake.
Wow.
And so he came in and I showed him the water meter and he goes, "Oh, you got a new water meter. They didn't record this." So, and he left me 2 water pitchers.
Sounds accurate.
So what this shows is that Gary Brown and the management at DWSD are doing a terrible job.
Yeah.
These workers,
it's a break
if they were
in the
told to
chain.
give me a sheet of paper, they would have given me the sheet of paper.
Right.
I know they would have. They're professional when they come into the house.
Yeah.
And we all need to be careful that the workers that we interface with are not the ones causing the problem.
Right.
True.
So,
Mike, let me ask you this. Did they show you how to, because we know in Benton Harbor, they never showed the residents how to use the filters, or did they show you and give you any kind of instruction on how to install the filters or how to use them properly? Or they just kind of gave them to you and said, manage
they didn't do that.
No, we see that's so dangerous. And the people of Benton Harbor,
it's very dangerous.
They just never used theirs because they didn't know how to use it. A good majority of them just never used them.
And the ones that did know how to use them, a lot of people in Benton Harbor didn't even receive a picture. Or we can look at what happened in Highland Park and on the east side of Detroit, where they gave people pictures that they weren't lead reducing pictures.
Right.
The filter wasn't lead reducing, and they gave it to the people anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I've been using water filters at my house, and water pitcher with filters. And they're a pain in the butt because you've got to make change, and they can become very costly. So what I've done for my son, because it's my granddaughter over there, I'm paying to have water delivered to the house, the 5-gallon jugs, which is not cheap, by the way.
No.
It is not.
But you know what? It's the health of my granddaughter.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
fortunately, she has not been lead poisoned. And we're just thankful that.
And more importantly, fortunately, you're able to afford to be able to do that. What about the numbers of residents in that area? Because I became very concerned because my son lives not too far from you. And what about the people in the neighborhood that don't realize what's going on? They can't afford to test their water. They can't afford to get the 5-gallon jugs delivered. What happens to them?
Right. I mean, that's the thing is a situation like this leaves people, so many people out that can't fix it or won't be able to do those things. So grateful that you were able to do that and you're able to help your son do that. But of course, I mean, once the story cracks open and people realize that what they're going to have to do to get clean water in their homes and all this other stuff, it's going to be devastating to them. It's a devastating hit.
Yeah.
Well, you're exactly right. And I'm fortunate that I'm able to do this because I have a technical background as well. And that's why I went to Paragon Laboratories. When I was working, I used that lab for things that I did on my job. And so I have confidence that, they're doing a good job. In fact, I gave them a sample of the bottled water that we have delivered to the house. And I also did one through a pitcher water filter made by Pure, P-U-R. Mm-hmm. And those came out at 0. I was just testing the lab to see if I have clean water. Will they report it as clean water? And they did.
Okay.
So that was just a sanity check on my part. I wanted to see if there was any bias in their testing methods.
Sure.
And there is no bias. And I'm sorry if I'm using words that are sort of techie, but that's how I think about this problem. But I believe we need to, and I want to work with the People's Water Board. I've talked with Sylvia about this. We need to do some testing similar to what I'm doing at different houses around the city. And one other thing, I did tell the water board, they set up a Zoom call with me and my son, and with also Walter Knoll, a retired chemist, the city of Detroit, because they're quite concerned about what I've revealed.
Yeah.
And they claim they're going to do another one, but I revealed to them, and I wanted to save this for Gary Brown, that water in my son's house had been shut off for 3 years, back in like 2014 to 2016. And then we bought the house from the guy who, he basically couldn't live there anymore. He wanted someone in the neighborhood to get the house before it went into the tax foreclosure auction. So we pulled it out. We got control of the house. But so for 2 or 3 years, there was no water flowing in the pipes. And this is important because I suspect every house that's had its water shut off for a period of time will have this problem. Mm-hmm. And we had all the pipes have been replaced in the house. They're PEX lines. It's that synthetic material. We replaced because all the water had frozen. The heat had been turned off before the water had been turned off. Mm-hmm. So
pipes.
PEX.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The faucets are new. Post 2014, they were purchased and installed in 2016 or 2017, I believe. So they have the lower lead in them. In 2014, a new standard was issued where any pipes manufactured had to have the lowest lead, not 0 lead, but much lower than previous. So we did it out of the laundry tub because it was closest to the basement inlet of the water system into the house, and because it had the shortest PEX lines.
Okay.
And it had a new faucets all through the house. So I think we should start testing this all around, because I read Sylvia and Eileen's op-ed from a year and a half ago, and they make assertions that these disturbances make the lead worse in the house.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
they did it based on the science that they know and the journal articles, the academic articles that all talk about this. But now we're not just going to speculate from an academic point of view. We now have the data. And we need to go to different parts of the city, especially a house who's had its water turned off for a period of time. Because when you turn the water off, you're no longer feeding that film that needs to coat the lead pipe. And we don't know how long it takes to recoat that pipe. But clearly, 3 years isn't enough, 3 years of continuous water usage. So
Right.
this is important, because the water shutoffs may have wrecked the internal plumbing of homes all across the city and put residents in danger.
You know, and
It's
this is
ironic
science.
that-
This is science that DWSD knows too. They know it. They knew when they did mass water shutoffs that they were going to ruin the infrastructure. And then they hired Hamrick, a demolition company, to shut everybody's water off. So it ruined the infrastructure at the shutoff point. Like, just complete and total negligence on their part throughout this entire thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, Nicole. Go ahead.
No,
It's just been so
I find
infuriating.
I find it ironic that if we look at the video that was shown before we started as we started this webcast, that was talking about the lead in the schools. And I remember when that first was introduced to the public, and we had a meeting with the water department and the mayor's representatives and himself. And I queried him and I said, you know, just using my logical deduction, I'm not a scientist or by any means, but if every school sits right in the middle of a neighborhood and they have lead, wouldn't it be, you know, logical to think that the houses surrounding that area where the school is have lead in their water too? And he goes, no, it's just the schools.
Well, he didn't want.
And
He
it
doesn't
appears
want the
that
public
like
to know.
the entire city is lead ridden because all the pipes are still lead.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
especially
and
after
then
Well,
we
the
have,
water shut off.
yeah.
My view on what happened with the schools is that the contractors put in fixtures that were manufactured before 2014, and they didn't have the proper supervision. I suspect they got rid of them, their old stock, put them in the schools.
Mhm.
And when you have faucets, right, in a building I worked in when I was in auto, we had the water fountain had to have a continuous stream of water coming out of it because of lead in the building. Of course, once we saw that, we didn't use that water fountain to drink from. But the schools sit for 3 months with no water flowing. They've got to flush those lines. I'm working with a water engineer in Tucson who's testing schools out there, and she's finding the same problems. You know, after COVID, there's lead coming into the school systems in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a problem. And it's callous indifference on the part of the contractors who built those schools, because those are new schools.
Right.
And there's also callous indifference on part of DWSD for not warning everybody that the water lines have to be flushed in a serious way. And I fault GLEWA and DWSD for this, because you're right, Val. They know this stuff, or they should. They have an engineering staff that is trained in this. And hopefully some of them are PEs or professional engineers. That's a licensing thing that some engineers go through. And hopefully they're keeping up with the peer-reviewed journals and the findings that are coming out. I told you earlier in this call that I met with Gary Brown and his top technical people. The technical people seem to know what they're doing, but they don't have access to the money that's needed to fix this. And they didn't roll their eyes at me and my son like Gary Brown did. You know, he doesn't know, and maybe if he was a good manager, that would be one thing, but he's not managing this thing properly. All he can do is roll his eyes. And what we need to do, we need to launch a campaign to get all the lead lines removed in the city of Detroit. That's the only solution. There is no other solution.
Yeah.
The money is starting to flow out of Washington, D.C. into the state of Michigan. And I hope we can grab some of it. It's going to take $1 billion possibly.
And time. It takes so much time to replace the pipes. Like people it's not like 40 years. Yeah. I mean, when they replaced the pipes in Lansing, right around the Capitol building, it took 10 years. 10 years, and they only replaced the piping right around the thing. It took 10 years. Like, we have to get started, and we have to get started while the federal funds are here.
But I think that they do a gross misrepresentation of the time that it takes to replace the pipes, because I remember when they were first talking about replacing pipes in Benton Harbor, they were saying that it was going to take like 10 years, and now they have it down to supposedly they can do it in a year and a half.
Yeah. You know, I don't think that they. Yeah, I don't know. A year and a half doesn't seem like enough time.
I just want to say we need to make sure Detroiters are trained to do this. This is a massive infrastructure project, and DWSD gave me a list of contractors that I could employ to pay for the lead line removal myself. And they're all contractors outside the city of Detroit.
So we've got to train the workers to get it done too.
This could be a good career for people, at least for 5 years, and then they'll have the skills to move on to other construction jobs.
Right. Definitely.
You know, Mike, we talked a little bit about Benton Harbor.
You're freezing up.
I know that there's a really disturbing update with Reverend Pinckney and Benton Harbor. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes.
Am I froze?
Reverend Pinckney.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about him. I think this is important. Reverend Pinckney is leading the campaign, the grassroots campaign, or one of the leaders, I should say, in Benton Harbor, forcing the state to remove the lead lines in the city. Someone made a complaint accusing Reverend Pinckney of selling the water and tampering with the water filters. The state police have visited his home in the last few days, and then they went to his church either yesterday or the day before to observe the distribution of water. Now, they're suggesting that they were 6 months behind in paying him for storing water at his church, that maybe he's trying to extract revenge or retaliation, and that maybe that's why he's tampering with the water filters. Reverend Pinckney is doing no such thing, and we're going to have to stand together and defend him, because they have put him in jail twice for his activism in the city of Detroit. The last time the Supreme Court of Michigan released him from prison because he found that there was no law that he had broken. Ben Harbor made up a law and put him in jail and convicted him. And it looks like somebody is trying to frame him again. That's anyone that knows Reverend Pinckney knows that this is an absurd accusation. Right. Only the sickest human being would poison people with lead intentionally.
Right. Well, Reverend Pinckney's a very good friend of ours here, and we're definitely going to be organizing and hitting the ground running when it comes to making sure that there's that folks know about it and that they know how to get involved and help fight against it. He's definitely and Benton Harbor community, you know, we hold very close here at the People's Water Board. We've been in the streets with them for a long time. So definitely all of our hearts are with Reverend Pinckney and his family. And it's time to organize, right? That's what that looks like.
Absolutely.
It's time to organize. thank you, Mike, so much for coming on such short notice. I know you're super busy to tell everybody about this water testing and it's the results. We hope to have you back on in the future so that you can kind of give people, you know, what happens when, you know, kind of give people an update on what happens with it. And, you know, to all of our viewers that tune in, please take care of each other and try to stay afloat. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye.